Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. We are back for another day of working on the living room project. It's been left go for a while, so plenty of updating to do, but not a lot of money to do it. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Yes, most people do right now. This chair that has cat toys on it right now. This chair is a very, very old chair that was found in a vacation rental up in New England. And I can kind of bring you out here a little bit. This is what a recliner was back in the day. You can see here it reclines by moving this into the notches. And I just thought it was so cool. It was painted a dusty blue at the time that I got it, and I got it for free. Grandkid toys. They're going to be moved too, but right now that's where they are. And I got it for free. It was this dusty blue. It actually would have gone very nicely with this carpet now, but I painted it black some years ago, which is still fine. And for whatever reason, I was into the animal print, and it's gotten really saggy and shaggy, and it's served its purpose. It didn't come with any cushions, so I just took, this is like a memory foam. It's the egg carton kind of foam. And it's one big long piece. Well, when you fold it up like this, it takes a lot of fabric, especially if you make the mistake and buy the 48 wide. So if I had the 54 wide fabric, then I could just wrap it around, sew a seam, be done. But I didn't do that. And I didn't even think of it when I bought the print. I had so much trouble picking out what I was getting. And so now I'm gonna have to piece it together. But I thought, you know what? If I only bought 3 yards, it's not gonna make it because of that, because it's too narrow. So if I cut this foam and make 2 cushions, one for the seat and one for the back, then I'll have enough fabric. So I'm gonna attempt to do that instead of having this one big long piece that folds all up on the chair. And we're gonna see if it works. This is funny. Every time I open something up, like if you saw the video about the dining room chairs, you saw that there was all this fabric underneath. Obviously, back in the day, I did a lot of sewing and recovering. It's like a time capsule every time I open something up. Now I know what I used this for. This was on an outdoor wicker, like love seat kind of seating, and I made a cushion for it, and that wicker I picked up on the curb that somebody put out for the trash men, and it was in fairly good shape. It just needed to be repainted, so I spray painted it, which was lovely, and then I covered it with this cushion, and because it had no cushions. Resourcefulness is a good thing, right? So what I'm doing is I'm going to have to cut the fabric off completely. So I'm going to take the rest of this fabric off so that it will be easier to cut the foam, because I want to cut this so that it fits on the bottom. I'm going to cover this separate from the back. This one is, like I said, one of those egg carton kind, and if I was just using this as one big piece again, I would not take the fabric off. I would just go over the fabric, because honestly, it's easier than taking that. I mean, this is just an added step. And there we go. This piece is going to be too short for the back of the chair, and I kind of knew that when I was cutting it. I wasn't worried about it because I do have other memory foam upstairs that I will use in its place. This will give me a much better idea of how much of this fabric I'm going to need for covering the bottom. Ideally, I would be using a little bit less than I'm going to use for the top one. But we'll see. I only say that because the top one's going to be longer because the back of the chair is higher than this. However, this is thicker than what the back of the chair will be. So, who knows? So when you're doing a project like this where you're just eyeballing it and you have no pattern or anything, just take your time. Take your time, move your fabric around, try it a different way. And by doing that, you know, you save yourself. Like they always say, measure twice, cut once. Well, I don't necessarily measure when I just have a piece of fabric like this. I can easily do it this way, but fuss around with it twice and then cut once. My goal in all this was to make one side where the seam is going to be smaller, like these two edges are going to meet. I'm going to sew it together just fine. And then this side, make it the bulk of it on that side. I'm going to cut a strip off that I don't need because I may need that to piece together for the top. Again, I'm trying not to buy any more. Not that this was real expensive fabric, but you know, I just like to do things frugally if I can. So I'm done crawling around on the floor for now and ready to sew up part of this. Part of it I'll have to do by hand, but let's see how this works. So what I decided to do, and it's getting warm, I think from all this crawling around, if you have a nice big long table and you can do this on a table, that's great. I do have a table that opens up very large if I put all the leaves in. However, I have to use that as my sewing table as well, so my machine is already out, and so I'm going to do this on the floor. But what I decided to do was to reverse the fabric and to sew my seam basically that way. What I'm doing is I'm kind of pinning it to the pillow in essence. And glasses are slipping off and everything. Like I said, I'm warm. If you're a person who really likes measuring and preciseness, you will not enjoy my method. I do use patterns for some things. I do use precise measurements. So you can see there's my seam that's just pinned together right now. I'm going to carefully take this off. We're ready to go. So I'm going to keep the top corner unsewn on this one, on this side, just because I'm not quite sure if I like how the corner is coming out, and I can always tack that by hand. And now we get to put it on the pillow and see if it actually worked. And turns out I didn't like how that corner turned out. I wondered how that was gonna be. So I am ripping out the top part of that seam ripper. It'll probably bother me if I don't do it. So that's what I'm doing. And, you know, just keeping it real, showing my failures too. And maybe that way you won't think like, oh, well, she's all perfection, I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah, you probably can. It's good to learn how to sew, even if you're just learning. You know, this just takes a basic straight stitch and a seam ripper. This is your friend. Now we will put this onto our cushion and we'll see how we like it. Now I will hand sew the corners the way I want them to be, and I will hand sew this seam, which looks daunting, but it's really not. And I could have done some of this on the machine, and then I wouldn't have had so much to close up by hand, but I don't know. I don't mind hand sewing either. All right, so I finished sewing that and all the corners are done. The whole thing's done. So let's put it on the seat and see how it looks. Uh-oh, we have a kitty. We have a kitty right where I have to put the right where I have to put the camera. All right, I'll figure something out. Right, I think that looks pretty good. The chair project spilled over into another day. Today we're going to do the back of the chair and get this thing done so that we can be using it. There is a slight pattern to this fabric. It's almost like it creates a stripe, and it's a little more pronounced on the video actually than it is in real life. It's a little bit darker, I think, in real life than the way it's showing up on camera. But I've started to loosely put the material around this piece of foam so that I make sure that I get those stripes in the right direction. Taking out the pins, and then we'll see if this fits. It might not be perfection, but I'm okay with that, and I hope you will be too. So I need to get my scissors, just cut the corner a little bit. You don't want to have too much bulk there when you turn it right side out, so I'll cut a little bit closer to my seam that I sewed. I'm ready now to flip the fabric right side out, rustle this thing in there. I'm telling you, it's going to be a little bit, it's truly going to be a little bit of wrestling because the cushion is pretty wide for what I tried to do here, but we'll see if I regret this decision. When you're trying to get fabric over foam, it just sticks. Like if I had sewn kind of like a pillowcase for it first, that would have been easier to get this on. But again, I usually try to do things a little bit less expensive. Well, always. I always try to do things less expensive. Okay, this is working out better than I thought. If you don't want these kind of cat ears on the end, then you want to tuck those in more when you sew. Tuck them in and probably not even stitch them. You just push them down in there where your seam is tight. Because this fabric's on pretty tight, you can see I have a nice corner there, and it's most likely going to stay. If it wouldn't, I can do a little bit of hand tacking there. And instead of just saying, well, we have to throw this out, I'd encourage you to see if you can repurpose your chair in some way. Start with a chair. A sofa's a little bit harder, or even start with a pillow. So I'm going to do what I did for the seat cushion. I'm just going to tuck these all in, and then I'll be hand stitching a seam across here, and it'll be done. So I'll show you once I get that all finished. Thought I'd stop in the midst of my hand sewing to ask if any of you use a thimble. I guess they still sell thimbles. This one is super, super old. This thimble, let's see if the camera will pick it up. it has like a brass interior, and this was my grandmother's thimble. Was thinking that this thimble must be, well, thinking about when she passed away, this must be about 100 years old, this thimble. It's pretty cool. The cushion is all done, everything's sewed up, and let's see how this turned out. And here it is. I'm gonna put it on the back of the chair. I'll stand back in a minute here so you can see the finished product. I think that turned out pretty well. We have a little bit of a pucker there. I think that's from where the seam is going one way or the other. The nice thing about this too is that I'll be able to reverse it. So if we have one side getting nasty, which it shouldn't get too bad because it's a dark color, and I think that's a good choice for this chair. But I am happy with that. I hope it inspired you to get out there and see what you can cover. And again, basic straight seams, just take your time, turn the fabric inside out first to get your seam, and then you just turn it right side out and you're ready to cover your cushion or your pillow. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out, and I will see you next time.